Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced by North Idaho College located on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guests.
As we move into a new year, let me be one of the first to wish you a very, very successful new year of 2002. We hope it brings you happiness and, above all, safety, and that things go well for you. We're very pleased to introduce our guest today, who was with us last week when we talked about another holiday, and he's back to talk about this holiday, and particularly as you meet with your friends and relatives, family, what you might be able to do to bring in the new year in the form of food and menus. And I welcome back to the program Rick Schultz, who's a colleague at North Idaho College. He's an instructor and the director of our culinary arts program at North Idaho College. Rick, we just had a great time with you last week. What great ideas you had for that holiday in December, and now let's look forward to New Year. But thank you for being with us. You're generous with your time, and we appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
You're such a good communicator, and you have such great ideas. And now that we've had some of our viewers back from last week and maybe some new ones, let's move into around the world. People stop and pause and recognize that they're moving from one year to the next. Of course, sometimes, and recently we were able to look at moving from one century to another, even from one millennium to another. But now, as we just simply move into a new calendar year for much of the world, what are some of your suggestions? It's a different kind of holiday, and it's so even before we get into some menus you brought, which we thank you for bringing those, how about some suggestions for our viewers?
Well, first of all, Tony, I would too like to wish everyone a Happy New Year. I would like to just reframe what you said a little bit. Certainly very important. But I like to think of it as not so much as that the new year brings you much happiness and prosperity, and but that the people and we take time to make that happen. It just doesn't show up as with food. It just somebody somewhere has to do a little work. So I would just like to wish everybody much luck and take that little extra time to make the new year a happy, prosperous, loving new year to everybody. So that would be my wish.
Sure.
For the people there. I'm better at cooking than I am at communicating that. But again, we've just gone through Thanksgiving, we've just gone through Christmas, very traditional holidays. New Year's, at least for me, was never a traditional meal. A lot of people do have traditional New Year's meals, but it's more about New Year's is getting together and again enjoying more time with people, maybe different people than what you got to spend the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays with. And so in that respect, I like to, food-wise, have a little bit more fun food, a little bit less formal type of food, food that's easier to prepare, maybe a little bit different. As I said in the previous program last week, don't try to make or do a bunch of new things, new recipes that you've never tried before. Maybe use things that are family favorites and try to bring in one new one. There are magazines and cookbooks out there that are just filled with ideas. What I like to do is look through the books and look through the magazines. I happen to be a picture lover. When it comes to a cookbook, I love the pictures, because I want to see, not only do I want to see what it's supposed to look like when I'm done,
yes,
because that does make it easier, it gives you something to strive for, but I also like to be visually stimulated. And that whole creative process starts when you're looking at a picture. And so take the time and look through your magazines, your cookbooks, and say, gosh, you know what? That looks good. Or I've always wanted to try that. And just pick that one item. As I said last week, read through your recipe a number of times. Become familiar with it. Sometimes you can put a couple of steps together, and that will make it less time-consuming. By reading through it, you can have all of your ingredients and all of your equipment at hand, because again, that is what sometimes is very frustrating and stressful for people. So have your ingredients, your equipment, your ovens preheated, all ready to go so that when you actually start to make the recipe, you're just following a list of instructions. It's talking you through it and makes it a little bit easier, a lot more fun.
Less likely for it not to go out well or to lose
Right.
maybe the whole menu.
Because what happens, obviously, is when you have a disaster, it makes you say, I don't want to try that again.
Right,
Or I don't want to try something new again. So if you get success, that breeds success.
And even where they try it at this time of the year, or maybe later in the year, and then use it next New Year's.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's talk about a menu that you've brought. We'll ask them to put up on the screen the first one.
I brought some ideas, not a whole menu. A
Okay.
menu, I just brought some ideas.
Just some
some
ideas.
fun things that people might not have thought about. But up on the screen, we have the first item is the buffalo chicken rolls. Now, a favorite nowadays is buffalo chicken wings. There's hardly a sports pub in the nation that you can go to that it's not offered. Many restaurants offer it as an appetizer. People love it. Hot food, for people who eat hot food and love hot food, it makes you want to eat more.
Right.
You say, gosh, it's so hot, I think I'll have another one.
And so this takes you through.
So this is buffalo chicken rolls. It's a little twist that I saw on a cooking show. Some shows you get a lot out of, some you don't. And this is, the worst part about buffalo chicken wings, though, is they're very messy, all over your hands. It's not easy finger food. So this solves that problem. You take a basic batch of soft rolled dough, in any cookbook, and mix that up. And you could take frozen bread dough, according to the directions to thaw that if you'd like to do it that way. You let that rise, and then you roll it out into a rectangular shape. We're talking like this for people who are visual. So after rolling it out into a rectangular shape, you brush that with mayonnaise. Leave your edges and your sides untouched. Just a little light coating of mayonnaise. On top of the mayonnaise, you're going to put a half a pound, give or take. If you want a little more, you can have more. If you don't want so much cheese, that's okay. Of grated cheddar cheese. Sprinkle that all over the top of it. And then you're going to take 3 or 4 or 5 diced chicken breasts. And we're creating here.
Sure.
We're not developing anything that has to be so specific. So, and if you had something other left over, you could use other. But sprinkle that over the top. Sprinkle a half a pound of crumbled blue cheese. And then you roll that up like you would a cinnamon roll. So anybody who's cooked, has made cinnamon rolls, you roll that up and you have a long cylinder. At that point, then, you make sure your seam side is on the bottom. You transfer that to a baking pan and you make a nice round circle out of it. Then you score the top, and that allows as the bread dough to rise, it allows it room to expand. Score means you just make about a 1/4 inch cut with a sharp knife. Let that rise until the dough is not springy. In other words, you can put your finger in and it doesn't spring back at you. The indentation stays. That lets you know that your dough's ready to go. Bake it off at 375 for half hour to 45 minutes. Most people should, in home kitchens now, should have your pocket thermometers to test the temperatures of things for sanitation reason. In your breads, you can stick the pocket thermometer into the centermost point. You're looking for 195 to 200 degrees. You bring it out, slice it all around the outside as you might, so it's in wedges. And then in the middle, just put a cup of the traditional celery sticks that goes with hot buffalo chicken wings. And you have a variation on it. You have those wonderful flavors. You have the dough, the celery, plus no messy fingers.
I was going to say, for a lot of us, there'd be 2 things there that'd be a great benefit. One is that you don't have the messy fingers, and you may be with a group at a restaurant or a bar or something, watching events for New Year's with collegiate football. But secondly, a lot of us, when we eat things like chicken, we like the dough or the bread, something that gives it another dimension that's very, very fine. I think that's really, really helpful.
It's kind of it's just a fun thing. We're talking about New Year's. We're talking about trying different foods, and this is a great variation. I've served it at, I think, 3 different events now. I've made it personally, and it's not that much trouble. And people just rave about it. The flavors of the blue cheese and the hot, spicy chicken, the celery, people love it. So in my book, it's a winner.
some people have, for health reasons, they cannot have spice, and so you can still do this, and the chicken just leave the real heavy spices out.
Leave the Tabasco off.
The other thing that I like about your suggestion today is that you're taking a very common item in the menu, such as the chicken wings, that many people have done, but and they like to do that, but you're giving them another added aspect to it, that so that particularly if they're serving people they've served before, they say, well, gee, you're very creative. You have something else that you've added to this dish from the past.
It's, all the ingredients, Tony, are all the same. The chicken is the same, the bread's, everything's the same. It's how you put it together. That's where the fun, creative part comes in.
I believe you've also brought with you today another item for a menu. And
I did.
So let's bring that up on the screen.
Let's see, I think this one is the baked brie. A fellow colleague of ours who used to work at the college in the admissions office, Kirk Koenig, I made this for him one time, and he still swears by it. It's a standby. It's a wonderful item. Go to the grocery store. You buy a round or traditionally shaped French bread. You slice the top and remove slice the top out of it, much like you would a pumpkin. You carve around the top so that the whole top comes off in one piece, like you would a pumpkin. You take about half the dough or the bread out of the inside, brush it all with olive oil. And then you can even buy the little jars of chopped garlic. Garlic is always a winner with people.
It's very healthy, too.
And it's very healthy, too, but people love it. So you got olive oil. You brush the whole inside with garlic, or you could roast garlic. That's another great thing to do. And roasting garlic can be done from the whole form, or you can just put it in a saute pan. Garlic cloves in a saute pan with some olive oil on. Turn the heat on. And just let it cook until it develops that nice dark golden brown color. Another way of doing that. Put the garlic in there, and then you take brie cheese and you peel the what am I looking for? The rind. Peel the rind off, and then you put the diced up brie cheese inside. Put the top back on. Wrap it in foil, bake it in the oven at about 325 for 30 minutes, and basically you unwrap that and you've got that nice crunchy bread on the outside. You take the top off it and you have all that ooey gooey delightful melted cheese inside with garlic and olive oil. And then the bread that you take out, you serve that on the side in little pieces. Your guests will dip that into that melted brie. And then, of course, as the brie begins to cool down, then you just tear off pieces of the bread. You've got the melted cheese right on it. It's a wonderful appetizer, easy to take to someone's house. Always a winner.
I was going to say, it certainly could be an appetizer, but isn't this particular item also something you could serve actually with certain main courses? You could
serve it with a main course. You could make it a main course. Okay. You could put, again, there's that wonderful chicken breast that is so versatile, or turkey. You could put cooked turkey or cooked chicken in there with the brie. And then that and a nice salad with a vinaigrette dressing, something kind of sharp, something with an acid to kind of cut the richness of that cheese and olive oil, and you'd have a wonderful main course. So you should be a chef, Tony, because you're thinking way ahead of me.
But there are other talents as for chef that
yes, there are.
I don't have, Rick.
There's a couple.
Yes, there is, and I know my limits, and so I just appreciate people like you and that prepare such wonderful, wonderful menus. I'm not sure on the show where you brought 2 or 3 menu items. Do you have another one?
It seems to me like I'm not remembering whether I brought another one for this one or not. But I did want to make a point. We talked about food, and you talked about presenting food in different ways.
Right.
One of the newest, and this will come in really handy for people, because one of the newest trends in cooking is plated desserts. So in other words, instead of putting the cake in the middle of the table as it is, you bring it out on the plate. And the most wonderful thing is, the new trend is to go back to the basics, the old standby. Now, I was at Culinary Institute of America at Greystone in St. Helena, California this summer, and I took a class from the gentleman who's the pastry chef at the French Laundry. Very well known, very expensive right there in Yountsville. And his fun thing was to take the most pedestrian of foods and make it worthy of being served in a 5-star restaurant. For instance, when I was there, we made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Really?
We made sponge cake, and we made a peanut butter mousse, and then we made a strawberry mousse using fresh strawberries. We layered that up. That was served on a plate in the shape of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We then made little lemon meringue wafer cookies, very, very thin, shaped like this. Put a pile of those on there to represent the potato chips that you would have. And then on the side of that, we put a little dollop of ice milk ice cream to represent the glass of milk that would go with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know, you think that's weird, but when you presented it, and it was presented to master chefs down there in California, and they all went, wow, that is something. We made gin and tonic sorbet. Again, just using your basic gin and tonic mix, obviously a lot less gin and way more tonic. Again, making the little lime wafers this time to go in that. In fact, he, interestingly enough, which people might find very interesting, is that he is famous for his dessert, the s'more, which you would traditionally think of being made around the campfire. We made graham crackers from scratch, and then we made marshmallows from scratch, and we put them into molds that were about this big around. And inside the marshmallow, we've had chocolate ganache. And put it all together, took the portable gas butane torch and browned the outside edge.
Like on the camping trip,
exactly
you
on the
brown
camping.
Marshmallows.
Exactly. And here it is, s'mores being served in a 5-star French restaurant. But it's that twist. It's that taking, his idea is you take the basic ingredients. It's not what you have here, but what you do with them. So you just add a little twist. You just try to have fun with it. Cooking is fun, and have some fun with it. So those are a couple of examples of some things I saw this summer that I thought were very, very interesting.
That is so helpful to the viewers, because and people who are very busy, and I know there are families where they at times rush, and with the children too, they'll say, okay, here's some peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But when you have more time, and maybe you're going to have a guest in, you can turn it into something that is fun and a wonderful dinner.
And something that your guests have never seen.
Yes.
And of course, that's when it gets exciting, is when people see something different and rave over it.
And when your guests are in, and if you told me I was inviting them over for peanut butter and jelly sandwich,
good luck with that one.
But surprise them with it and show how you can.
But
make
it might be a great way to just see what kind of friends you have.
Sure.
If they're not coming over for peanut butter and jelly sandwich, do you really want them over anyway?
Another question I have, because some viewers, not only that are listening, love the great quality of the food and the taste and all the things you talked about, but to them, aesthetics, they're very proud of their table, and of course they have decorations for some of these events and candlelight and all of that. But let's talk a little about color for those who are very much, well, you said yourself that as you're looking at recipe books, you love the photographs and how it's going to look. And particularly for the holiday season, when we're talking about New Year's, what are some of the great combinations of colors that in the food that will impress your guests? Well,
it is so true. Setting a table, again, is setting the stage for success. When people walk into your dining room or into your home to come to visit, there's, nothing more wonderful than seeing the table set. Because what that tells the guest is, you're expected, you're special, I wanted to have the table set when you get here. I've been to homes for dinner, and you're like, do they really know that I'm coming tonight? Is this really supposed to? So in that respect, it's a wonderful thing. The other thing is many, many homes have the most wonderful of china patterns and silver and candelabras, which they don't necessarily, not that I think they shouldn't. I think you should bring out the good stuff all the time. Enjoy the good stuff. It's part of life, the celebration of life. But a lot of it doesn't come out except on special occasions.
But when they do that, they're saying you're special too.
You are special. That's exactly right. And so, fresh flowers, certainly when you set the table, you want to keep in mind that people around the table should be able to see each other so that they can converse. So while fresh flowers can be wonderful, they can also be way
You
overdone.
don't
If
want
they're
something
too
like a huge reef almost.
exactly,
Yeah.
you're going to be like, wow.
I hear
when
them. I hear them across the way, but I can't see them.
I know that they're somewhere. When it comes to food, I myself like to put food on very simple plates because I like the plates to be the frame to showcase the food that's on them. And I teach my students all the time of color on your plate. You don't want the same colors. You want a variety of colors. So, the green of asparagus is wonderful if you're going to have baby new red potatoes, because now you have the green, you have some red, you have the golden browns of maybe the chicken that you're cooking or the lamb or something of that nature. But certainly you want to, and when you cook a menu for a big menu for a holiday meal, I always list out everything that I'm serving. Twofold. One, it gives you an opportunity, more than twofold, but it gives you an opportunity to look at what you're serving, to balance your flavors, to look at your colors. You say, gosh, I'm serving mashed potatoes. Maybe I don't want to serve cauliflower too. You have two white things.
Right.
So you go, oh, geez, I'll do caramelized carrots. So now you have that big splash of orange in there. Mm-hmm. It also gives you a chance to become way more organized. The more you think about what you're going to do, the more organized you're going to be when it comes time for the production.
And if you don't list that, you might wind up with an all white plate, or
you could,
or it's all brown, or
and the time that you would notice that, or it would become apparent, is when you put it on the plate, and unfortunately, all white dinner is now on an all white plate, and
it's too late.
Paprika only goes so far. You can only paprika something so far. So it's just being organized, it's thinking about it.
Sure. And in addition to the table and the different colors that you have on the plate, is it wise to also, there are a lot of beautiful homes that you visit, and you have a certain color of the walls and the carpet and the surround. Does it make sense to try to coordinate the table colors with the surrounding room itself?
Well,
or is that taking it too far?
I mean, you're out of my area. I thought you were going to ask me, should we try to coordinate the food to match the room? And I was going to say, I don't like blue food. But you're out of my area a little bit there. There's not very many homes I've been into that are Christmas red and green. So maybe, Tony, we're taking it just a little bit too far. But there's some pretty fabulous decorators out there that have done some marvelous things with homes.
Well, maybe we'll hear from one of them.
I'm not going to step on that one.
Sometimes I get wild ideas during the show.
That's okay.
From
I'll work with you.
What the guest is saying. You have worked in so many places. You've run a really very prestigious restaurant in Chicago. You've been at North Idaho College for a number of years, and as you said, this summer you were down with the pleasure of working with a great chef. As you move around the country and you're dealing with holidays, we know there are subcultures within our culture. Are there some differences around the country, like for New Year's, a holiday, and what's really stressed in those regions?
Well, I was born and raised in Idaho. I'm a native. I was born in Lewiston.
Left and came back.
Left and came back, absolutely. And probably my biggest shock was when I moved to Chicago, because I was amazed at the ethnicity, which was the one thing that I loved the most about being in Chicago. I love the ethnic groups. I love going into Greek town and eating Greek food surrounded by people of Greek origin, and listening to them talk and enjoy life, and watching them scream Saganaki when the flaming cheese comes by, because that's what you do. And so there is so much. The Polish people in Chicago is a whole nother, they take, which I'd never seen, but they take full dinners to church to have blessed. I mean, we're talking about the pierogies, we're talking about the Polish sausage. I mean, it's hauled in a basket to the church, which I found delightful. I just loved that whole thing. All the way to, egg wars at Easter, where you take the hard-boiled eggs and you have your egg wars and see who's cracks. I don't know. It's crazy stuff. But for the viewers that are from different areas, they know what I'm talking about. For the viewers that have always been born and raised and lived their whole lives in Idaho, gosh, I only wish you the opportunity at some time to go spend a holiday in another culture, in another land, because it's so exciting. It's fun to see the different things people do.
At a holiday or any other time.
Or any other time.
Yeah. If you are going to be hosting someone from a different part of the country or another country, and you're trying to be so welcoming and sensitive, and you know they come from, say, from Greece, and you would like to have a Greek dinner, but that's not your background, your expertise. What advice do you have to a hostess or host that would say, I really want to make them feel at home, and of course there are great recipe books and all, but what kind of advice would you give trying something new, or should they try it one time before the guest comes so that
Well, so I always say try it before the guest comes. Anybody, and you've traveled a lot, I know I've traveled, the most wonderful thing is that somebody went out of their way.
Yes.
It does not have to be elaborate. Do something simple, but do a little research ahead of time. Find out what it is, and it may be just one little thing. But if you pull out one Greek dish for your foreign Greek exchange student, it's going to show that you care a lot about them being there and that you enjoy them being there, and you took the time, again, to make them feel special, just like setting the table. And maybe it's table decorations, or, by the research, and it's so easy now with the internet, food, the food channel, food.coms. I mean, there's so many of them. It's easy to find recipes. It's easy to find little bits of tradition. But make it simple and then give it a try at least one time before they come, and take that stress away so that when they're there you can be relaxed. And
something else that, and I've been in this situation where I'm very fortunate, I'm not allergic to hardly any foods, but I'm allergic to shellfish. And I went to a wonderful, wonderful luncheon, and it worked so hard, and it was a crab salad. So how do you find out in advance of your guests coming that the sensitivity of being allergic to something? So how do you approach that?
How I approach it personally the same as you do from the professional standpoint of having a restaurant, is it's not my responsibility. It's the person's responsibility who has the allergy.
To let you know.
And please, a week before the event, if you're going to someone's home, just call them up and tell them. They may not have ever planned on serving crab or shrimp or what have you, but let me tell you, they'll be so grateful to know it, because if they did, it's so easy to change menus a little bit. It doesn't take very much, and there's nothing more frustrating.
On that note, I have to bring the program to conclusion. What great advice on both programs. You've just helped us so much, and I know that our viewers keep watching because of this kind of information they get. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been so enjoying our conversation over the last 2 weeks with Rick Schultz, dealing with how you prepare for the holidays, and we hope you've enjoyed them as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Again, have a great new year. Take good care of yourself, and we'll be with you again next week. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running entirely college-produced program on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us again at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.